So today we will focus on testing. What is software testing, and in general, what testing is. And you'll be surprised to find out that it is very simple and you've actually been doing testing on a day-to-day life. So we're going to look into that throughout the day. Tomorrow, we'll look into the concept of bugs or defects, right? So interesting topic. Don't miss. That's tomorrow. So basically, bugs are the reason why there's a demand for QA testers. Okay, so if there was no bugs in softwares, then there would be no need for testers. But that's not the case. So that's why we're here. So we're going to look into the bugs, the topic of bugs tomorrow. Okay, so day 3 is dedicated for databases. Don't be overwhelmed when you see abbreviations such as SQL. Our approach in teaching is just to simplify everything so that you can understand better, and then step by step you will go to more complex topics. Databases are like cabinets, like storage, where you can keep information in an ordered fashion. So you've all worked with Microsoft Excel or spreadsheets in the past, I'm pretty sure, where you can organize your information, your data in columns and rows. So that's something that what we refer to as databases, and SQL would be the language that helps you to manage that data. So that's something that we're going to look into day 3. Okay, important topic, don't miss. All right, so day 4, we will teach you how to write your first line of code. So that's also important. Again, sounds complex, but then again, we'll keep it slow and we'll keep it simple, step by step, and then you will learn. Basically, the whole week is more of the idea is, again, is introductory, right? So that you can get a sense of what the IT career is and what kind of specializations you have within IT career. What's the easiest path into the industry, and what you like and what you don't like. So you'll have questions throughout the sessions, throughout the week. Keep putting the questions into the chat. I'll get the questions towards the end or throughout the lesson as much as I can. So the last lesson, day 5, which is Friday of this week, will be dedicated for test automation, which is highly in demand these days. We'll show you how to interact with the browser automatically, how you can actually write a script that will open the browser, that will go to a specific website, perform clicks, and enter some text, and so on. So it's fun, basically. Okay, it may sound complex, but at the end of the day, I know so many people who has been doing this, who learned, who started from manual testing and all the way up to the automation testing, and now they do this for a living. All right, so with this, what kind of questions we're going to answer today, right? So what are some of the frequently asked questions that we have seen in the past during the bootcamp or during the free week of lessons? Do I need to code? This question comes up a lot. All right, so we're going to answer this question. You're going to find out if you need to code or not, right? So what level of English will be needed? So some people I know, or English is not their first language, so they have English as a second language. So, but nevertheless, they are in the market, they succeed, and they have this question or concern about, is my English level sufficient to compete in the job market? So we'll answer this question. We'll also show you how our lessons actually help you to improve your English level as well at the same time, and to help you to be a better communicator or to pass the interviews. Is certification needed? That's an important question. We're going to answer that. And more importantly, we will look into what is testing and what is software testing. Okay? All right, so enough with the agenda. We kind of have an idea what to expect from today's lesson and from the whole week of lessons, right? So now let's see what audience we have today, right? Majority of the participants today, so we do the statistics each time basically. Majority of the students that we have, 87% specifically, are new to QA, and that's normal. A lot of people are trying to change their careers, trying to look into the IT, especially after the pandemic. You know, the fact that many people started working remotely, and then the IT was actually one of the jobs, one of the careers that survived during pandemic, and a lot has changed. The infrastructure in most of the companies has changed, which now allows to work remotely or hybrid. That brings us to think that, okay, this might be a good opportunity for me now or in the future. So this is how we see majority of the people being new to QA and learning QA. We also have participants who are looking for a job. We wish them all the best. Market is very competitive and tough. It has always been, and more competitive lately. So we wish you all the best, and we would be happy to hear any feedback from you if this week of lessons will somehow help you to make one step further, right, towards your goals. We also have some senior professionals. Everybody's welcome. Any questions are welcome. Just put it into the chat and we'll get to that. Okay. All right. So first things first, I want to hear from the audience what your motivation is. It's very important whenever you're trying to make a decision, whenever you're trying to think of a career change, you have your drives. What drives you? What motivates you into IT? What is attractive in this industry? So tell me about this. So just put it into the chat. Let's be active, right? So that's the important part of being in a lesson. So be active. And I'm going to go ahead and start reading some of the responses. So here we go. Flexibility. There we go. Yes, flexibility of this industry is true. It's flexible, so you can work from home. You can work while you're on a different location, not necessarily home, right? Sometimes some of the companies are in a hybrid. Okay, financial stability, that's true. As I said, IT has survived the pandemic, so it's one of the careers that was pandemic proof, right? So anything happens, everything is shut down, you can still have your laptop, you're connected to the internet, and you know what to do, right? If you're good at what you do, you can still perform your tasks remotely and get paid for that. Okay, so that's one of the stabilities, financial stabilities. And let me see. So you're looking for expand your abilities into automation. All right. So we have one now participant who's already in the industry, specifically a mechanical engineer, but trying to change their career into automation. Yes, mechanical engineering, I would guess that would be close to test automation. And then if you are an engineer, you would make a good automation tester, actually, because for the automation testers, we also refer to as engineers, right? So QA engineers. It's the fancy title in the QA or testing industry, basically. So work from home and maintain family. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons what drives me as well. So if you ask me personally, I love being in IT because it allows me to have this balance between work and family. Okay, so it's, as a family person, you would definitely understand that you value your time with family, and you can do that while being in IT. Of course, it's tough, but at the same time, it pays off. High demand, innovation, absolutely. It is creative career, so you can be innovative. You can come up with new approaches in coding or in testing. Yeah, when you have kids, it is good you can work from home, space to grow, you can make money. I'm just reading the responses. Good. And so this is perfect. Okay, so thank you all of you for your active participation. This is great. I like when people are active in during the lesson, because this is how you learn. Okay, so now let's put all of the factors that we just talked about together. So working from home, that has been very popular. A motivation for majority of the people that I know who came to the boot camp or to the industry. And then they changed their lives and now working from home. So this is great. Okay. So growth opportunities or financial stability. Can you grow? The answer is yes. All depends on you. It is not easy. It is tough when you have to go through years of hard work, right? You don't just grow. So you have to go through the steps. Basically, usually you are a QA analyst or you're a tester, manual tester at the beginning. I'll talk about the differences of manual automation throughout the week. So basically, you start from the bottom, and then you start growing towards a higher opportunities, and that's absolutely possible. I have seen people to grow to VP levels, like vice president level, all the way, right? So from QA lead to manager, and so on. That's possible. You have paid vacations, absolutely. So that's a good one, right? So we all want to have some fun. Your insurance provided by work, and your 401k, so your retirement plan. So there are so many things that actually that you can achieve that comes with a stable career in IT. Okay, so we know what we want, basically. So now that we have our motivation, so let's talk about how to get into IT. How can you get into IT industry? So first option is universities. Of course, there are so many universities, and that's I would say, a traditional way or path of getting into the IT, and not only in IT, in basically into any industry. It has been, after high school, you go to university, you finish the university, you go, 4 years, you show up, and then you have the chance. Another option, which has been more and more popular, I would say, for the last 10 years, maybe, that would be the boot camps. And the companies are also, employers are also getting used to the concept that you really don't have to have a degree to perform a task in IT. As long as you know how to perform a particular function in the organization, your degree is just piece of paper. So it's nice to have. It's good to have. It shows that you're a disciplined person. You went to university, you showed up on time for 4 years, you paid a lot of money. But at the same time, it doesn't really guarantee that you know what you're doing. So we can run the comparison of cost. Obviously, the bootcamp is much less. This numbers are in general for in the United States. So if the college is going to cost you like $20,000, $30,000 at least, and the boot camps would be much less, of course. And the time, so currently boot camps, they range from like 3 months to 6 months, right? But the universities would be several years. And as I said, for the job placement or the employers, basically their acceptance is rising, so they're basically okay with having someone from a boot camp rather than having necessarily from a university. So it doesn't make much difference. So those are the different paths you can get into IT. So obviously the recommendation would be, personally for me, you know, a bootcamp, basically. Now, bootcamps teach you different types of specialization. Some of the popular ones would be learning how to test or learning how to develop. So you can either be a tester or you can either be a developer, right? So we're going to mostly talk about tester role today. Okay. So here's another popular question. Is coding required? Many people ask this question because coming from a non-IT background, right? Non-technical background, that's your concern. Do I have to code? So how am I going to code? Like the word of code is actually complex. It gives you concern, but the answer is it depends. It depends on the specialization that you have within testing. Okay, so testing can be done manually, and it can also involve some sort of coding, some sort of automation as well. Okay, so if you're a manual tester, then the answer is no, you don't have to code. There's no coding. I'm going to show you how to manually test an application today. I'm going to show you how to create a test case, and that's very simple. You just don't need a degree. Any sort of bachelor's degree or a master's would be just a waste, I would say. So any person with a common sense can do manual testing, basically. So no coding required. Also, accordingly, the demand in the job market is lower because especially these days, there's higher and higher demand for being more efficient and automating the processes. Okay, so here's another option or another specialty, basically within testing, which is ETL testing. ETL testing. I'm not going to dive into what the ETL is too much because we can talk about this on day 3 when we talk about SQL. I'll mention what ETL is. So this is basically related to databases, how to organize data, how to working with information, basically, right? So that includes a little bit of coding. That includes a little bit of coding. Lately, they are also looking for more and more coding. But there's higher demand for ETL testers than demand for the manual testers. And then comes automation testing role or specialty. Automation testing. I'm pretty sure if you came to this free week of lessons, I'm pretty sure you've heard of automation. So automation testing, as it implies, yes, you're expected to automate something, right? You expect to automate the testing process, and automation always involves coding. So yes, again, coding or the languages nowadays are becoming more and more user-friendly, beginner-friendly, and as part of our bootcamp, we teach Python. Python is probably the most user-friendly programming language, at the same time very powerful. And our approach, or my personal approach in learning anything, is to simplify things, right? So anything can be simplified, and then you can learn step by step so that you can understand more complex things eventually. You can't just jump into the most complex topic and then just learn it. So can be done. Okay, so here's the difference, and this is the answer to the question of is coding required. As part of our bootcamp, we basically cover all of those 3 specialties in one batch. That's the approach that we provide. So basically, when you graduate from bootcamp, you're a full stack specialist, full stack tester. So you know how to perform manual testing, ETL testing, and automation testing. So you're basically prepared for and you have higher chances of applying to a variety of job positions, basically. And you have this useful information here that you can compare and think about that, accordingly. If you're a manual tester, your expected salary is within a certain range, and and the more complex it gets, of course, the salary also rises. Okay, but the one thing that I would ask you to pay more attention is to job market demand, right? How many open job positions there are and what the job market is looking for. So the market is looking for more and more automation. That's something that you just keep in mind. Okay. Another question, what level of English is needed? Not your concern if you're a native speaker, but again, if you have English as your second language, here's the advice, or here's the idea that you need to have in order to pass the interview, in order to impress that person, so that that person accepts you as part of their team, so that they have confidence that you can just dive into this organization and then just start performing your tasks with confidence. So you need to be able to understand the interviewer. When they ask you questions, you should be able to understand the question during the interview, and you should be able to express your answer, your opinion. Okay, so that's the idea. And also ask questions, right? So there should be a communication basically between you and the interviewer. Your accent doesn't matter, right? So it's all about how smooth the communication is happening between you and the interviewer. Okay, now, of course, it just doesn't happen right away. Even if you're good at English, or even if you're a native speaker, you might actually fail the interview if you don't prepare. Of course, you know, so how can you actually improve? How can you be best during the interview process? We provide you specifically, you know, certain ways of achieving that level. So first of all, we ask you to be active in the class and ask questions at the beginning of each class. And when the actual classes start, we ask questions from the students about the previous topic. So you should come prepared, right? So that's the key. You should come prepared. You should, you know, raise your hands and answer the questions, and ask questions. Be active, basically, right? That's definitely going to improve your communication skills. Also, there are interview flashcards. Flashcards with interview questions that are prepared, they're offered for you. I'm going to show that later in the session. That's something that we expect you to memorize, to go through them. They're really useful. Basically, there's a question, there's an answer in those flashcards. They're on our website, and you will have access to it. And the recommendation is that memorize. You need to memorize those interview questions, question and answer, basically. Participate in mock interview sessions. Every month of your study, you have one mock interview. For every month of your study, you have one mock interview session. Okay, so there are 4 mock interview sessions. You basically have actual interaction. Individual, that's individual 101 mock interview sessions. You have to prepare and pass the interview session. So that's definitely going to help you to improve your English if it's a concern. Apart from that, you can use gamified applications such as Duolingo. That's something that I recommend to those who might actually struggle. All right, so we cleared that question. Now let's move on to the next question. Is certification required? Now here's the example from the actual market, from a dice.com. It's a job platform where recruiters, hiring managers post their job positions. Here, as you can see, this is a senior QA automation position. Okay, in New York City, here's a salary range and so on. And you can see that all the way at the bottom, they say ISTQB foundation level or equivalent certificate is required. And they also mentioned this somewhere here at the top as well. But pay attention, it says desirable, but not required. Okay, so that's the answer to your question. If you ever wonder, well, is certification required? Well, it's desirable, it's nice to have, but not required. But if you ask my advice, I say go and get it. Okay, so get the certification from those internationally recognized organizations, right? There are a few of them. ISTQB, that will be the first certification that you want to get. You can do this in parallel with the bootcamp as well. I know people who prepared and then who passed through the from the ISTQB test. Can be done. And how does it help you? It helps you to stand out from the crowd. Okay, certifications help you to get shortlisted. Some people might say, this is just, you don't need those certifications and so on. I disagree, respectively. I would disagree because certifications actually show that you are a hardworking person, that you're working on yourself, on your skills, you're continuously improving your professional skills, your technical skills, and you're serious about your career. So it definitely helps, right? So those are the three organizations or three types of certifications that you might have in your resume. I personally have certifications from each of them, so I would definitely recommend. Okay. And if you guys will have any questions, of course, during the free week or after that, individually reach out to us. We will try to help you out. We find time to answer your questions. Okay, now that we have overall idea about what the IT industry is and what motivates us and some of the questions such as is coding required or is certification required, now let's answer another frequently asked question about, is it tough or is it difficult or is it easy? Now, my question or my advice to you is that if you ever think about, if it comes to your mind, this question, think about any big achievement in your life. Okay, now tell me if it was easy. It definitely was not. Whether it can be in education or at work, right? So you achieved something, or in business, in anything, you struggled and you achieved something that was never easy. So the same thing. Career change into IT, it's not easy. So you have your goals and your motivation, right? That drives you, and then you set according to those that motivation. You put some goals, achievable goals, and then you work hard. You work hard towards the goal. Basically, you study, and there are two more very important ingredients into that success formula. Those are consistency and persistency. Okay, so you need to study consistently, few hours a day, every day, right? So not that only just a weekend and you just forget about it and then you're busy. I know everybody's busy. Everyone is trying to multitask and so on. But the key to success is consistency. And think about it. You're basically trying to compete in the market with others who might have studied years, like maybe they studied 4 years to understand IT and to get into the IT, and you're planning to study just 4 months, let's say, and then trying to compete with them. So you're going to have to put a little bit of more effort, right? Sacrifice some of your weekends, maybe your evenings, and study consistently. Now, persistency is very important because along the way, it's going to be tough and it's going to be easy to give up. So many people just think, oh, it's not for me, but that thought should come, would come to anything, any bigger achievement in your life. So I would say persistency is very important, so that you don't give up, right? So you keep applying, you keep studying, you continue your self-study, and then it's going to work out, right? So I have seen many success stories And every one of them just worked hard. Okay. All right. Now we got to the moment where we can talk about testing. Now, tell me what the testing is in your understanding, okay? Now I want your participation. So you can put it into the chat, say what testing is for you. Okay, how do you describe testing? Okay. Okay, so testing is checking the quality. That is correct. Yes, it's checking the quality. It is to check if everything is working perfectly. Okay, yeah, that's what we look for as testers. And also looking for issues. Yes, when we're testing, we're looking for issues. Is there any issues with this application? Check if the application is developed without any errors and working as per the requirement. Okay, here we go. So we have some more technical explanation now. So keyword requirement here, right? So we'll talk about that. And testing is based on the specifications of the client. Yeah. To check the quality of the new product, look to see if working as per the requirement. If yes, then yeah. Yeah, here we have some great examples and explanations. Another answer is exploring the issues, identify and fix the defects. So checking the quality, basically. Perfect. Okay, guys, you guys are already testers, so that's great. And as I said, any lesson that you participate, it is very important to be very, very active. And this actually, helps you to understand better. Okay. All right. So testing, just to put everything that you just said all together, is checking. Testing is checking. That's okay to say. It is to check how well the product works. How well the product works. It is also comparing your expectation versus reality. Okay. It's also checking your expectation versus reality. This comparison is very important. Okay. If you think of the return period that you have when you purchase something from Amazon, right? I'm pretty sure every one of you at some point purchased or ordered something from Amazon.com, and there is a return period. What do you think this return period is for? That return period is for you to test, basically. Okay, so you've been doing testing, but you just didn't get paid for this, basically, right? So you didn't do this for as professionally for a living. But guess what? People do this for a living. So whenever you order something from Amazon, you basically have some expectations about the product. There's an advertisement that you saw where there's a beautiful picture. So you look at the picture description and you say, oh, this is how it works. So I'm gonna, purchase this TV or this vacuum cleaner, and let's say this robot vacuum cleaner is gonna work or not. So and then you have the actual reality, right? When you have this product in your home and you're testing this, you don't like it, you give it back, and this is when you found some bugs or some issues. Right, so you'll be doing this. That's what testing is, basically. Now, here's one really nice example. So this couple here are testing a mattress that is made of a material called Tempur-Pedic, and that material was originally created or invented by NASA to have reduced motion transfer. Okay, so that's what they're testing. They saw it on the commercial, and they are they're doing exactly what the tester would do, basically, right? So so the question to you is that how would you test if you were working as a tester for this organization who makes those matrices, how would you test? So let's see what you would say, right? So I'll repeat the question. How would you test this kind of mattress? They said this, if you put a glass of wine, it's not going to spill if you jump on it, right? How would you test? All right, so let's see some answers here. So you would actually throw a ball. Okay, you would several people would jump. Yeah, you could do that, and you would test it with several glasses of wine. You can put one glass of wine on top of another. I wouldn't do that. So and it really depends on how close you're going to jump into the glass of wine as well. Yeah, that's true. So let's see some more examples here. So as you can see, this person here using a hammer to check if they can still hold the glass straight. So let's move on. Here's another example, more examples of testing. A robot vacuum cleaner, right? Robot vacuum cleaner, how you can test it. You can test it with how safe the vacuum cleaner is when it comes to the pets like cats and dogs and so on, and then what can it actually clean up the Lego pieces and so on. All right, so we have an idea of testing, right, in general. Now, what is software testing? Let's take the same idea of checking if the product is working as expected and then try to apply it into software testing. Okay, trying to apply it into software testing. So software testing is verifying or checking that the application does what it is supposed to do. Simple, right? Again, as I said, my approach is to simplify the learning process or simplify any complex topic because it is simple, right? So software testing is verifying that application does what it's supposed to do. So, and then how do you verify? How do you check? You check by comparing the expected conditions against the actual results. Okay. So again, your expected conditions, take a look and pay attention. So let's say your expected condition was to have a welcome message when you log into the application. And your actual result potentially could be an error message, right? And that difference would be reported as a bug. We're going to talk about software bugs tomorrow in great detail and how bugs actually travel through different processes between QA and back and forth and developers, right? It's a fun process. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Keep that comparison between the expected conditions and actual results in mind, okay? Keep that in mind. So this is what the software testing is about. So you compare, again, you compare your expected conditions to the actual results, okay? And then report the differences as bugs. So this is what the software testing is all about. Now, here's another question. Here's a question to the audience. Imagine this is your day one. You started as a QA tester, and your QA lead or your manager asked you to create test cases for this particular application. Okay, so they gave you the link to the application. You open the application and you see a login page. You're looking at the login page. There's username, password, and there's a login button. And you're thinking, okay, how am I going to create my test cases? So what would you do? How would you design your test cases? How are you going to create your test cases? Or are you gonna, what kind of steps are you going to take to design your test cases? So it's a question to you. Be active, and let's see what your approach would be. Okay, so this is That kind of questions actually come up a lot during the interviews. So they can give you a pen, a pencil. They can give you a cup and say, design your test cases, come up with test cases, and so on. Okay. So I have one answer here. First, need to have username and password to log in. Okay. You're right. Yeah. You need the username and password to log in, and name the test case. You can come up with test case names, right? Okay. That's the answer that I see from the chat. And create username and password. Yeah, you could actually, you might have to create test users as well. That's a valid point. Register first and then check authorization. Makes sense. Okay. So now I have another answer here. I'm going to start with positive test and with negative test. Good. Yeah. So you see, positive, negative, we'll talk about that. And test it based on the document. Here we go. That's, someone said, test it based on the documentation. Okay, guys, so it's important. This is actually, tricky questions that you get during the interviews. They try to trick you. They try to see how well you understand the process, how things work, right? Are you actually going to jump into testing right away, or are you going to ask some questions from the manager first, right? So the idea is that if you're a professional tester, you don't jump into testing right away, right? You never jump into testing or test case design right away. Your question is going to be, do you have requirement documents? Do you have requirement documents? Is there any requirements that I can take a look at and I can read? Is there, maybe there are other, someone else already worked on this application before? Can I take a look at their work, their test cases, their approach of testing, and then build on top of this? So you need to first understand the product. Okay, here's another interview question. You were carrying a calculator, you dropped it. Okay, maybe it's damaged. I don't know. How would you test it? Here's another interview question to you. Okay, I'm looking for answers. Guys, go ahead and put it into the chat. So you are carrying a calculator, you dropped it, bang, maybe it's damaged. How would you test it? Okay, so here's some answers. Try to perform simple math and do some, yeah, that's correct. Add, minus, yeah, press all the buttons. First, check if it turns on, power on. Try to do some operations. Restart it. Try every number. Power button, turn on and turn off. Okay, good attempt, basically, guys. I like the answers. But again, interviewers give you such questions to trick you to understand if you know the overall process, if you know how the testing would work. What's the first thing that you need to perform, you need to do before you test, before you even come up with those test cases? The first thing is to ask questions. You need to ask questions from the interviewer. Okay, so if you're given such a question, ask first, what kind of calculator is this? Right? What kind of calculator are we talking about? Is this a regular calculator, or maybe it's a calculator that should work underwater? And it says that you dropped it. Where did I drop it? Was it dropped on the concrete, or it was dropped on a pillow? Maybe nothing happened in that case, right? It really depends, right? So before you or here's another question that you could ask. Was it on or was it off when you dropped it? Okay, so what is it made of, right? What kind of calculator is this? Again, so you need to ask questions. before you give any technical answer. Guys, keep that in mind, okay? That's very important. Right, requirements. Someone said business requirements. Exactly. So you are looking for the requirements. Have you ever heard of the elephant and blind man? I'm pretty sure you've seen this story or seen this picture in the past. So if you're ever given such a tricky question, you can give this example, or you can think of this example basically. So if you start testing, if you start coming up with the test cases right away without asking questions, without understanding the product, without understanding the software, you are like a blind man, or we're all like a blind man learning or discovering what the elephant is, right? And if you remember the story, someone said the elephant is like a snake, or elephant is like a wall, or like a rope, because they're just basically blindly discovering, touching, and then trying to understand, imagining what the elephant is, right? So the same thing, right? So when you are testing, or before you start testing, you have to learn the product. You have to understand what the software is about, what to expect from the software or from the product. All right. So where do you get those expectations from? How do you learn about the product? You'll learn it from the documentation, from requirement documents. Okay, so there are many different requirement documents. So don't be overwhelmed with the list here. But I'm just going to show you the one that's highlighted, which says Functional Requirements Document, FRD, right? So all the documents that you see in the list here, we pretty much cover all of them during the bootcamp. You will be given a copy or access to the copy, and you analyze those documents, and you come up with test cases, and you execute your test cases. You find bugs, you interact with the developer. We basically mimic, of course, the scenario where you have an interaction with the developer, you have interaction with your QA lead, where you can send reports of execution, and so on. Okay, so those are the documents that you will be learning from. Okay, time for a little demo. So I'm going to show you how you can create test cases, and you create test cases, of course, based on the requirement documents, right? Functional requirement document. So here's an example of a functional requirement document. Okay, give it a moment. It's coming up. All right, here we go. So this is a functional requirements document, and as you can see, it's a regular, document used by organizations normally. And here, as you can see, FR1 stands for functional requirement number 1, login. You read the documentation attentively, carefully, and then understand what to expect from this particular window, okay? From this particular login functionality, right? So when you enter the password, for example, the password should be hidden or masked so that no one else should be able to see what you're entering if someone is standing right next to you. So this is a requirement, right? That's something that you need to test. And if you enter the correct username and password combination, then login screen will navigate to product screen. That's your expectation. Okay, that's your expectation. Now, how the application is going to behave actually, that's what you're going to find out when you test. Okay, and take a look. If user enters incorrect username and password combination, then the system will display an error message. So that's the requirement document. And based on the requirement document, we create what we call as a test cases. You guys actually have been creating those test cases, at least the test titles. Okay, so let me show you this application called Azure DevOps. Okay, so I'm going to bring this application into the screen in a minute. Here we go. Okay, so the application that you're looking at right now is called Azure DevOps. right? So test plan section of Azure DevOps. This is where you create your test cases. This is one of the applications. There are many similar applications in the industry, but this is widely used application and very intuitive, nothing complex. Again, as you can see, it clearly tells you or guides you saying, add a test case, new test case button. See that new test case button? So you're going to go ahead and then click on new test case button. Okay. When you click new test case button, a new window opens and it's expecting you to create your test case. The first thing that you put in would be the test name. How do we usually name? We usually name the test cases starting with the word verify, right? So you could say, you could put it in a different way, but this is just a recommendation or a standard again. All right, so verify, right? So user can log in with valid username and valid password. Okay, so I just gave a name to the test case basically. Okay, verify user can log in with valid username and password. Now this is the name of the test case, and now we're going to put in the steps, test steps of the test case. Okay, there's action and there's an expected result for every test case. Okay, so here's the action. So first action would be navigate to the particular application. So this is if this is the URL or the address of the application, this is what you're going to say, okay, navigate to this particular URL, to this application, and the expected result is the login page displays. Right? Is it difficult? No, it's not difficult. You're basically writing the steps, right? Writing the actions that you would perform to test. What's the next step? You went to this particular page, and the next step is you have to enter the username, password, and you click login. Okay, let's write this down. So enter username, right? So let's say valid username, and I would say allows to enter, or you can say system allows to enter, application allows to enter, and then enter valid password. Okay, now for the password, we have a requirement, right? The requirement says password should be masked, right? If you remember, that's what the functional requirement document was saying, that when you enter the password, it should be masked with stars or asterisks so that no one else can see. Then the last step would be click login button or sign in button. And what's the expected result when you click login button? The expected result is that products list page displays. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, as you guys can see, we just created our test cases, our one single test case basically. I'm going to go ahead and save and close, and here we go. So this particular test case right here, we just created one test case. So what's the next step after you create the test case? What is the next step after we create the test case? The next step is we are going to run the test case. Okay, we're going to run the test case. To run the test case, you go to the execute tab. You see there's a define tab where you create the test case, and you go to execute tab where you run the test case. So we're going to click run for web application. When you click run for web application, you can see that it opens this small window in the left-hand side. Okay, the small window will be opened in the left-hand side, and that small window can actually be put right side by side, just like that, so that you can execute, you can run your test case. You can read the steps, and then you can run the test case on the right hand side. Okay, so it says navigate to this page. Okay, we went to this page, and it showed the login perfectly fine. We're going to pass the test case. You can either fail or pass. Okay. Now, next step, enter the valid username. So that's the valid username I just entered. Okay. It allows me to enter yes, pass. Enter the valid password. That's a valid password. I just entered the password. Do you see that it's masked? So it passed, right? So application is behaving according to the expectations. I don't see any issues. We'll talk about issues or bugs tomorrow again. What we're seeing that right now is a positive testing, right? Everything is working fine. You're entering valid or correct username and correct password. And the last step is we're going to click login. Okay, click login. I am in the products list. I see the list of products. I don't see any issues. Everything looks fine to me. In that case, we're going to pass the last step as well. And then we're going to pass the whole test case and click save and close. Okay, and save and close. So when we get back, you can see that our test case actually passed. Okay, our test case have actually passed. That's it. It's that simple. As I said at the beginning, being a manual tester is easy, right? All right, so it's common sense. You don't need a degree for that. You don't need to study 4 years studying IT to become a manual tester. Being a manual tester is putting yourself in user shoes, basically, right? You put yourself in the position of the end users, non-technical end users, just the regular users, and you pretend to be the users basically, and you perform those actions, right? So there's nothing technical in that sense. All right, so this was a good demo. Now, there's another important thing to take into account as we look into IT industry. That would be the generative AI, right? So generative artificial intelligence, that's something that cannot be ignored, right? So that's something that you always need to take into account going forward. So this tool or this technology will be used more and more as part of our IT world, right? In IT world and pretty much in all the applications and all the processes, generative AI will be implemented, will be integrated. Now, as a tester, as a QA tester, or as an IT professional, you need to be familiar with the technology and you need to know how to use it more frequently and use it efficiently. Okay, so here's an example I put on the screen. So I'm basically asking ChatGPT to come up with test case scenarios. Okay, to come up with test case scenarios. So as you can see, it is coming up with all the test cases such as verify, login with functionality, with the valid username, with the invalid username, and all of that basically. So I can give you this example right here. So this, as you can see, so I asked if the ChatGPT is familiar with the saucedema.com. So ChatGPT is familiar, okay? And I'm saying, okay, I'm creating QA test cases for this website. I need to create test case titles. Give me some ideas. So keep the test cases in this format. So you have to be a bit specific. You need to know how to manipulate a little bit with the ChatGPT's answers, right? So that it generates the answers that you're expecting in your expected format. And then you can see that it basically gave me what 20 test case titles. Okay, 20 test case titles, and you can actually ask ChatGPT to create the test steps for you as well. Okay, you can ask it to create test steps. So just take one of them, for example, for verify a functionality with valid credentials, right? So we can ask create test steps for this test case. Okay, so, and here we go. As you can see, it gives you the test steps, right? So open the browser, navigate, and make sure that the website is loaded successfully, and enter the username, enter the password, click, you see? So generative AI is here. It's not going anywhere, all right? So you get used to it and use it as much as you can during your learning process, and then after you succeed during your work process as well. Okay, all right. Okay, so let's move on. Now, here's another frequently asked interview question. I've seen this a lot, right? So, and why is this question asked so often? I'm going to explain this. So, what if the requirements don't exist? So, you're given a task, you join a new organization, new team, they gave you an application to test, and there is a lack of documentation. There's no documentation. What are your actions? How are you planning to test? Okay, so that's the next level question, right? So initially they just gave you an application to test. They were trying to trick you if you know what to ask for. And then after you ask for it, right, you say, I'm looking for requirements. So, and they say, okay, what if there is no requirements, right? So yeah, I see some answers in the chat. You need to explore, perform exploratory testing. Great. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that is one of the recommended approaches. So let me first explain you why this question is asked so often. That's because in IT, so there's in many of the organizations, they still have old applications, desktop-based applications, mostly created 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? So those are legacy applications. And you can imagine that over the years, those applications have changed over and over again. It's like, it's like they patched it, right? With duct tape and with all that stuff. So this application is like, and all those changes were not recorded in one place. So if you look for some information, you won't be able to find it. It's going to be so difficult. The person who created the documentation doesn't work there anymore, right? So there's no documentation or lack of documentation. So that's a normal situation in many organizations. That's a challenge that the companies, organizations face. And you should come as a solution. Okay, at least you should sound like a solution so that they like you and they want you to be part of the team. So what will be the approach? The approach to answer such question is communication. Again, you communicate with all the team members, right? Business, there are roles, different roles in IT, such as business analyst, subject matter expert, end users, and so on. You communicate with them, you study, you learn about the application, you perform exploratory testing, as one of you already mentioned, and then you come up with your test cases.